18 years old. He is one of the highest rated 18-year-olds in history, but Magnus Carlsen, he is the highest rated 18-year-old in history, so he has that on his side. And here we go, the game has started.
Wow, so it was an English opening when these two met in the World Rapid last year. This time it's a modern opening from Magnus, and he's done this before against many youngsters.
Is the anti-youth variation of...
Ooh.
Well, I'm going to call it that.
From the Erigaisi final.
Exactly.
Aha.
And here we go again. Are we going to see this exactly the same approach?
Yeah, it looks like Abdusattorov has certainly done his homework. Magnus has now played this against Erigaisi, he's played it against Prag, and he's now played it against Abdusattorov. It's no coincidence they're all teens. And the problem is, just like we were talking about earlier, if you keep repeating the same opening, whether it's a great one or whether it's a risky one like this, you'll get found out eventually. He lost against Erigaisi yesterday. What do you think, Lawrence? Good?
I'm actually very surprised by Magnus playing this, because this has no longer got any surprise value. Abdusattorov, prior to today, with his coaches, should have looked at this and various systems. And I don't really get why Magnus is playing it, because he's actually in a bit of a danger zone. As Jovanka said, he's not going to be too worried, but you lose this game to Abdusattorov, a few wins below you, and suddenly you're like, OK, I actually have to start fighting. Don't get it. I think you give, a player like Abdusattorov, who does so well with the initiative, I just dislike the choice. But I do know that Magnus has got certain ideas going into games, certain ways he wants to play. So, but I certainly, if I was his manager, wouldn't have advised it, or his coach. What do you think, David?
I agree. If you're going to repeat the same opening against all these really well-prepared youngsters who are clearly doing their homework with coaches, then repeat a solid one.
Yeah.
Don't necessarily repeat something so provocative like this, where you give White the centre, you give White the development. And, OK, it worked out fine for Magnus in the past, but yesterday maybe would have scarred him. And he doesn't look too comfortable, Magnus, already thinking at an early stage after White's very natural moves. White's castle queenside, which means he is hoping Black will maybe castle the other way so he can start attacking. Yeah, Magnus, it feels like he's freestyling in a way, and you can't... I mean, I would not feel comfortable freestyling against these youngsters. Maybe he'll get away with it because he's so good, but...
And there he goes again, pushing the pawn, attacking the knight. But in fairness to Magnus, OK, yes, he's using the same opening, but he is varying. It's not like he's going down the exact same moves again. I mean, it's a very thematic, he's attacking on the left side of the board, but the exact move order is going to be different.
Yeah. Well, it's a very similar move.
Very similar, though.
It is very similar,
Very
but
similar.
there, Erigaisi jumped into the middle, and now that's not possible.
Right.
So, I mean, I just don't want to be too harsh, that's what...
Yeah. Let's be harsh. Let's be harsh.
Because we hold Magnus to high standards, which he does for himself. And I don't think I would recommend this to a student. I would not recommend doing the same opening, especially if you've had some mixed experiences, and especially if your opponent's someone like this, Abdusattorov, who I've seen some of his games. The homework level is just incredible. But yeah, you're right, Jovanka. He's trying to mix it up, at least Magnus. And maybe it's an advert for being loyal to your openings. If he turns around and wins this one, Magnus, then we'll be praising him. But
yeah.
That's OK, Abdusattorov thinking, where is he going to put this knight that's attacked by Black's pawn?
I just liked his body language there. Did you see it? It looked like he was scanning the board, although it's not board, it's a screen. And where he's going to put the knight, I agree with you. Maybe he's going to... Do you think he's going to step it all the way back to the starting square? I've seen that idea. I've also seen the knight just go and park itself in front of the light squared bishop.
A few choices. And just before we jump into the game to analyse variations, I want to say that there's a game going on from the previous round still. And
is there?
It's now move 118, and it's bishop and knight versus king.
Wow.
And Rapport is going to win that one, but Rapport and Mittal, they're still battling it out. They've been going for over an hour now in their previous game. So, yeah, hats off to those guys for fighting.
And actually, that's a critical game, because Rapport was on 13 points.
That's
so if he wins that, there's a real bunch of players around the 5th to 8th position. So This is actually getting quite dangerous. If Magnus, if he has an accident here, he could actually be out the top 8 by the end of this round, and
Start having to
really work to make it into the finals.
Do you know, I had an interesting fact about the knight and bishop mate.
Yeah.
And it actually involves you, Lawrence.
Me?
Yeah, I think it was the bishop and knight mate. It was during a podcast with Fabiano Caruana. He said, there's only one person in the world who I know who can perform that mate in 10 seconds. And it's
I did a challenge a few years ago where I could mate anywhere on the board in 15 seconds or something like that.
Yeah.
I remember doing it with you and Fabiano in 2015 once, and you did it in around 15 seconds. Yeah.
That's what happens when you teach it. you could do the mate. Oh, obviously, it's a very important checkmate, and I would recommend anybody actually learn that checkmate. It's not a checkmate you don't want to know how to deliver in a tournament game. It can be very embarrassing. It's one of the standard checkmates, along with 2 bishops, along with, obviously, king and rook and king and queen. Do learn your knight and bishop. It's a bit more complex, but there is a nice method. So...
And the game has now finished with a win for Richard Raposo. Let's take a look at the current standings with all games finished in round 10. So, Richard Rapport is now only 1 point behind Magnus Carlsen. Same score as Anish Giri. And Gukesh is also right inside top 8 in that crucial 8th place, with Vincent Keimer 3 points behind, trying to get inside top 8. All right. He is not entirely safe. Magnus Carlsen, he will need points in this game.
Yeah, so he can't quite drop out the top 8 yet after this round, but he could seriously have to start watching his shoulder, looking over his shoulder if he loses again. And with black against Abdusattorov, it's not an easy pairing. And let's go back to this game, because there have been some small developments. It is different from the battle against Erigaisi yesterday. As Jovanka pointed out, Magnus used a different move order in the opening as black, and after a trade of knights, white has a set of doubled pawns in the centre on the d-file. What do we think about those? It's very risky, actually, what Abdusattorov's done.
I have no idea why he played knight d5 in that position. That looks like a really unnecessary decision. Knight c2 was natural. Knight a4 I didn't like so much, but why allow this trade? Because
you're right, he could have gone to a bunch of squares. He could have gone to any of these 4. He chose this one, and after knight takes knight, Magnus attacked this pawn, and I was kind of half expecting Abdusattorov to just grab this guy and say, OK, you can take my central pawn, but maybe if I bring my bishop out, or for example, then I'm still relatively healthy. I'm not sure who's happier here of the two, but Abdusattorov surprises me, surprises Magnus perhaps by just not touching this pawn, ignoring these guys, instead bringing his knight out first. Makes some sense. I guess if bishop takes pawn now, he's just going to attack this bishop with his knight, ask this bishop where to go, and if it goes back now, he will take this pawn with his queen. This looks like white's gaining a whole bunch of time, so what is Magnus going to do in the current position? So this is white's idea to defend the central pawn.
I mean, yeah, is it such a big deal to allow the knight to that square? Can you not? I mean, knowing Magnus, I was just thinking he's just going to develop a piece and just get on with harmonizing his forces. Yep.
Yep, you can go after this pawn with the black knight. It's not going to survive long, this pawn, right?
Well, probably not, but actually, after queen takes b4 now...
Yeah. Hitting the bishop. Bishop takes pawn, for example.
And now let's say knight f4.
Yeah.
You're going to throw in rook b8, I assume.
Yep.
And now if I go, for example, queen a3, which looks... Or maybe queen a4 is actually interesting there, but...
Just a pin.
Yeah.
And if I drop back...
the bishop back?
I'm not sure where.
Yeah.
Then, yeah, it's still very interesting. White can grab a pawn, but there are some open lines towards the white king. This didn't happen in the game.
a5.
Yeah, instead he just defended this pawn that we've been talking about.
But now you give white all these opportunities to give a check and then plant the bishop on c6 in some positions.
Check.
Or knight d7, knight f4, and you've got all kinds of... Or even bishop h6 here, actually. Bishop h6 looks very interesting here.
You're in an aggressive mood, Lawrence.
Yeah, it's time to play aggressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still, you know, White's king is also not that safe. So can you...
Looks pretty safe.
No.
There's no attacking pieces around it.
Yeah, for the time being.
I don't like this for black at all. Because after, let's say, you castle here, OK, can we start to be really caveman-like? Queen G5?
Well, we're going to see it because
we're going to see it.
He's played it. And I was wondering, OK, black has an option. He can capture the bishop. He can move the king to protect the bishop by castling, and also just, what about kind of stepping one square as well?
Yep, run away from this exchange, but now the black king is cut off from castling.
Yeah, this is the move actually I wanted.
Wow, OK.
King F8.
Interesting stuff from Magnus. Just shuffles his king to defend his bishop.
Oh no, the bar hates it.
No, I mean, this is just...
This is one thing we show kids, and it's like, don't do this. Even if Magnus turns it around again and wins it again, he's definitely not trying to set an example for the young ones. Forgetting to castle here. The whole idea, I guess, Jovanka, is that if the bishops get traded off now, black's rook's actually just as good in the corner as it would be on this square if it had castled.
Yep.
And also, with the king on this square, yeah, I mean, at least it can run away back to the centre if it really needs to. If it gets attacked, it can run either side.
Yeah, and I think the main point is just really that it becomes very difficult for White to kind of find a clear plan of attack. Whereas before, if you just castle, then it becomes like, you just trade off bishops, move the knight, push the h-pawn, follow the formula.
Yeah, we open up the h-file and checkmate.
Yeah, so whilst Magnus's move is quite unconventional, I mean, still, Abdusattorov has to come up with a plan, and that's not going to be as easy. So we see bishop takes bishop, king has to capture.
He defends this pawn, which was attacked in the centre, defends it, and Magnus moves his knight out. He's coming for this pawn.
He is coming, but here you go. Here comes Harry.
White's coming for the king, yeah.
And, now it's getting really shaky for Magnus.
I mean, the fact that the evaluation bar's on White's side does tell me that this attack is pretty scary. How do you even defend against this kind of caveman idea of pushing the pawn forward? Do you block this pawn yourself? Magnus says no. It would have been one idea maybe to push the pawn forward and block the advance, but he's happy to go for this pawn. And if White continues with the attack, this pawn is gone, right? You can't defend it. If White continues with the attack.
I think you have to play h5 here, basically.
Do we take this pawn? Do we...
I guess. What else are you going to do?
I don't know, just...
Is Abdusattorov's idea actually to play h6 check?
Maybe.
After, let's say, knight takes d5, h6, and just claim that the rook on h8 is going to be locked out, and now just play bishop c4, for example, and just play chess and claim that the rook is...
Yeah, well, he's going for it. We're probably going to see it.
This is the alpha zero approach, right, to push this pawn forward. For example, in that position you mentioned, Lawrence, when I was young, when people would play this, like Simon Williams would do this against me, the idea was always to take this pawn and open up the h-file. But modern players, they push it forward to h6, just to essentially cut off a piece and to create checkmating threats long term. And we'll find out the answer to your question.
I think he will do it. It's very, very natural to do this.
Maybe you could start with attacking the knight and then flick this one, depending on what black does. But either way, I think you're right. That must be the idea. Maybe you flick this one in first. OK, he's played your move. Very sensible. And the king has to go back.
I'm sorry, I'm just looking at this tweet from Aaron. He's noticed a pattern, an interesting correlation between Magnus and his losses and his hair.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
The longer the hair,
OK.
the more Magnus blunders.
Yeah, interesting. Have not noticed that, I've got to say.
No, I haven't noticed that either.
It's the inverse for me. I've blundered more than ever nowadays. I've got none of it.
Maybe a wig, then?
Yeah, if I start wearing a wig, I might put on some rating points.
Yeah, you start winning every game.
But, you know, your chess boxing opponent, Amam Hambleton, did that, actually. You know, he quite famously refused to shave until he became a grandmaster. And I remember seeing him tournaments where, it's just getting bushier and bushier.
There was that famous story of how he was photographed standing behind Magnus. I think it was in the Isle of Man, and then there were headlines all over. It was like Magnus attacked by a hobo, and,
Yeah.
and it was just a man, just with a big beard. But okay, meanwhile, your move on the board, and the bishop comes out.
I mean, all of these moves just flow, really. I'm not convinced it's that great. I mean, the bar says 0, but in a practical game, you tend to feel like you would take white here, right? But you don't have much to... It's difficult to say, even after, let's just say a standard continuation. Knight takes f4, queen takes f4, d5, OK? Even there, you don't have that much to chomp on. Queen d6 then follows, and, you know...
Oh, whoops, sorry. Attacking this pawn.
Yeah.
Black would block, and you're right, actually. The bishop drops back, and you can just offer a trade of queens.
But knight b6 is incredibly... Hold on a second.
It feels weird, right?
It feels so weird, this move.
It feels like you're pushing a piece away from your king. And, I mean, there are already flashy ideas, such as just putting your bishop on this square and just saying, OK, I'm leaving it there for a long time. If you ever take me, then the knight will jump in with a deadly check. I'm not sure this is what Abdusattorov will do or will want to do. Maybe he just retreats the bishop. And what is Black's plan then?
Well, I mean, I think it's quite a quite good move, actually, from Magnus, because the bishop is being chased away from a very powerful diagonal. And now, you know, Abdusattorov just moves it forward.
Makes sense. And now, a pawn push.
Yeah, and he's getting ready to do what Magnus does best, you know, develop his queen, connect his rooks, come forward, outclass everyone.
He is pawn up as well, so if he can defend, if he can put his queen on a nice post, then it's unclear where White's attack comes from.
What about the move rook d to e1 here?
OK, White's rook can slide across. You're lining up a sacrifice, right, Lawrence?
Lining up, maybe even rook takes e6, because rook e8 check exists at the end there.
Nice.
And if you...
Rook takes pawn, just to show this, with a fork.
Yeah.
And if...
if queen f6, was that the move you were...
Yeah, I was going to suggest this move.
And now can we go g4?
OK, you want to destabilise my queen. Yeah, it looks tempting. Maybe we'll see something similar in the game. He brought his other rook to this square.
Yeah, I didn't like that rook, because I felt like the rook did a good job just holding that pawn. But OK, he's playing much more sort of...
Sophisticated.
Sophisticatedly, yeah, that's the correct word, yeah.
Not necessarily good, just sophisticated.
Yeah.
I mean,
Putting his knight on this square.
yeah, but I'm not sure it has any follow-through after the
No
knight
threats.
gets to that square.
This looks like a hippopotamus defence again from Magnus. Just kind of these pawns on the third rank, just sitting very solid. Magnus can just put his bishop on this square on d5 and no threats, right? I don't see anything at all for White here. Do we think we'll see Magnus maybe do a dance with his king, try and bring it round this way?
For sure.
Maybe later on. OK, he actually starts with that now. Wow. OK, he moves his king out of the way. Maybe the idea is just to get his rook out at some point later on. But the king relatively safe. Yes, it's stared down by the white rook, but I don't see any way to get to this king yet. Looks quite well fortified. OK, the knight comes in, but as you guys said, no threats.
Wait 1 second. Did Magnus really put his king
On this square.
on that square?
Why not? Run away, like the Teletubbies. This square, and then you're hiding behind your bishop and knight.
OK.
I mean,
I wasn't expecting that, that's all.
makes some sense. The king was in the way of the black rook in the corner, and now the black rook in the corner can come out later.
All right, we are 22 moves into this game. Richard Report, who played that super long game in round 10, has finished with a super quick draw in this one against Anish Giri. They only played 14 moves, I think they played.
The famous Berlin draw that we've seen hundreds of times in chess lately.
Report maybe a little bit tired after that long marathon game, and both of them inside top 8, feeling that draw is a good result.
Yeah,
Probably.
I guess Giri has black, so as black you can't really do much sometimes about these types of opening draws. with Report, yeah, I guess he's in a decent position. He wants to recover from that marathon game. Yeah, we can forgive the players in situations like that.
Yeah, because we hardly see quick draws this season.
Exactly.
Well, yeah, I
You
was
count
gonna
them on
say,
one hand.
Yeah.
this is the first time we've seen it in this tournament. Has
Yeah.
anyone else taken it?
I remember a few, actually, yeah, maybe 3 or 4, but barely any.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a pandemic, and it was in 2021 when
Yeah.
everyone was doing it. But now, the youngsters, they forced everyone to fight.
We love it. A lot of fighting chess. And the other game still going on. This is round 11 out of 15. Magnus, he is fighting to get back on the winning track after losing to Gukesh in the first round today, a draw against Hare Krishna in the second. And here he is against 18-year-old Abdusattorov.
Yeah, parking his bishop in the center. This bishop can't be kicked away. I like it. What do you guys think? The evaluation bar says 0.0. Clearly, it's very imbalanced still. Who would you pick?
Black.
You want your extra
Give
pawn,
me
Jovanka?
my extra pawn. Yeah, I don't care. No, because I mean, the thing is that I can see the progress for Black. You know, he just has to kick some of White's pieces away. I'm thinking of that light squared bishop. And then find a safe haven for the king, and then just live happily ever after.
Yeah.
And I like the vagueness of this, of this conclusion. You know,
Yeah.
it's not going to the fine details.
I mean, we can count the pawns. We see Black's 1 pawn up. The computer says +1. Makes sense, right? But yeah, for a human point of view, you're right, Jovanka. You just go step by step. That's, I think, what Magnus will try to do. Get the black. Okay, first he kicks back the white bishop. You mentioned this.
Yeah.
The bishop will retreat.
Somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere. And then the black knight might rearrange itself. The black king can just get off the back rank finally.
So what do you think right now? What will be the result in this game?
Magnus win.
Okay.
Lawrence.
I think there's a really good chance Magnus does win. I haven't loved the way Abdusattorov has played the past sort of 6-7 moves. That said, it's still very complicated. But Magnus, I think, understands that this is a really big game to win now for the tournament standings. But a lot can happen. You go king b1 here, you play rook c1, you play c4 if you can. White has still got levers.
Yeah.
And you can see the bar is slapped in the middle.
Yeah, White has some plans, like you said. I mean, firstly, this is a nice outpost at some point for the knight to occupy. This lever you mentioned, Lawrence, maybe he'll play it next. He's cleared the square for his rook. Okay, Black's rook coming into the game now. I'm slightly surprised by that one because I thought the white knight could go and attack this pawn, which is now undefended. The black rook was previously holding on to that one. But another option, like you said, just move the rook across and start pushing pawns forward. Whose king is going to be more open if there are pawn exchanges, for example, if lines do open up? Unclear. Just completely unclear, this position.
Yeah, totally. And, you know, with that rook move, Magnus is perhaps planning to push his A-pawn up the board as well. And, well, you should be a fortune teller, David.
Well, it's Lawrence's idea.
Yeah.
I mean, this is, again, how different our brains are, Lawrence. I wanted to play king b1 because I was scared Black would take my pawn if I didn't defend it. You want to play king b1 because you can free up a square for your rook to attack. And that's a very stylistic thing. Abdusattorov is in the Lawrence Trent School of Chess, clearly. And he's trying to open up lines now against the king. Yeah, really
I wish he was in my school of chess. I mean, I wish I had 1/100th of his talent. I mean, he's honestly. I've spoken to a lot of GMs, top grandmasters, about this young man, and the reviews are just very, very, very. What's the word? They're just awesome. I mean,
5-star.
they're 5-star review. Everybody's saying the talent, the raw talent that Abdusattorov has not been seen since, you know, the likes of Magnus himself.
Wow.
That he's a very, very special player. Now he's, as we saw in the interview yesterday, he's fully 100% focused on chess. So I assume that means he's given up school, which is obviously always a big move. But with the future, the potential he has, I don't blame him. Also with the support of his country. I mean, when he won the World Rapid, the government rewarded him. When they won the Olympiad, I think they all got a house each. They all got gifted a house or a car at least, or something like that, right?
And then he got a house for being World Rapid champion.
A flat worth 50 times the annual salary of Uzbekistan when he won the World Rapid Championship.
He's a superstar in his country, so you have to pursue it. You have no choice. So, but yeah, I mean, even in this position we have here, this is a 3-result game. I don't even know who I would take here.
Yeah, me neither, to be honest. I'm a materialist, so I would say black, but I would also be terrified of any incoming attack against the black king. White's pawns are all really, really far advanced.
Yeah.
So you have to be careful here. If things open up, even an endgame isn't going to be completely safe for black if lines open up for the white bishop, the white rooks.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we're far from the endgame. Magnus, I mean, he's never going to be able to exchange queens. Yes, he's a pawn up, but the rest of his position's a bit smelly.
He does have 3 minutes more on the clock, Magnus.
Yeah, he does, but his big priority at the minute is, first of all, anticipating everything that Abdusattorov is threatening, and then he will be also calculating how to keep his king safe. And so he said, well, there's no threat so far, so I'm just going to push forward with his pawns. And, well, Abdusattorov will also be thinking of the same kind of way. He'll be also thinking, what is Magnus planning? Okay, if there's no threat, then he will continue with his own plan. And that will be to target the king. And I have to say, it's not natural what the hitting point is. And he steps forward with the f-pawn. Presumably, the idea is to lift that pawn one square further. And Magnus, in the meantime, gets the first punch in. And, well, Abdusattorov swiftly closes the position down.
Yeah, it's just such a weird pawn structure. I mean, you nearly never see this. White has kind of got that thorn in black's side, the white h6 pawn. That's really a nuisance in the endgame, middle game. Black's got the same on a3. It's relatively blocked apart from the fact that black is a pawn up. And where do you put the black knight? No idea. White's bishop looks really good. Could we see a situation where neither side really does much?
Well, I think the problem with Magnus's position is that I mean, he's the guy you want playing black here because you find useful moves, but hasn't White got just a very clear idea of playing d5 at the right moment? I mean, d5 looks like the break you want to make, because if the c file opens, obviously there's a discovered check. The e file opens, the queen is very vulnerable. What are you supposed to do against d5?
But if you kind of look at the consequences of d5, because every move has the consequences, you give up the c5 square for the knight, you open the long diagonal for, so say for instance, the queen doesn't have too many squares, but oh, David's putting it, she knows, I want to put it in the corner.
Yeah. But that's not really threatening mate ever, right? I can always put a rook on c2. And...
That's very true, but it's something that White always has to keep an eye on. So, yeah, it comes with some pros and cons.
I actually think if White doesn't play d5, he's running very little risk, though. He could just shuffle. How does Black actually intend to make progress here?
You could even hint later that you'll play this move.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, imagine you played a move like rook b6 here. I assume c5 would be very strong there.
Yeah.
Yeah, just ripping open one line towards the black king. I think that's why you want to push this pawn, right, Lawrence, because then you can guarantee at least one line will be open because you threaten 2 pawns at once. And the same, if you could play this move without allowing black to block it up, then it's going to be very, very strong. And Magnus's, I mean, his rooks are stuck, right? So this rook is stuck defending this pawn. This rook can't kind of go anywhere decent. Maybe you kind of put it on this square or maybe this square and just sit and wait. But those rooks are stuck. The black king, does it really want to kind of start dancing back this way later? Maybe. But at the moment, it's tied down to the defense of this pawn. Black's queen maybe could be improved, as we just pointed out. OK, he does move his rook. So maybe aimed against one of your pawn pushers, Lawrence, one of these two. But the black rook, again, looks a bit clumsy here, and white doesn't need to commit. White could also just wait, for example, with his bishop and just say, what are you doing next?
I mean...
it is tempting, however, to...
What happens if you do push? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I was hoping you wouldn't ask how he plays it.
Well, that
We
question
can let Magnus
on the board.
answer this one.
I thought maybe he could just leave that pawn there.
Okay, and do you bypass it? Do you
No, I mean...
exchange one set of
I
pawns
thought you
first?
could even just leave everything as is, because the whole
Really?
idea is, just put the knight,
Knight c5.
yeah.
Yeah, and if the bishop moves, eventually you're going to have to commit something because this is a threat. If you ever trade a set of pawns, for example, suddenly I don't like the idea of this line opening up.
That's why I'm advocating. Just hold firm, keep calm, and carry on. Just make any other move, like move the queen out of the way. I don't know.
Okay, I'd
Yes.
again be worried that things will open up, but maybe it's okay. Maybe black is solid enough with the blockade on the dark squares for now.
Yeah.
Let's just see what Magnus does, because there's so many options in the current game position. He could swap a set of pawns, he could lock it up immediately, he can move his queen, like you say, Ivanka, move his knight. I mean, it's just inspirational, just seeing these youngsters just show no fear, like this tweet says. I mean, it's not that Magnus is losing his grip, it's far from it. It's just the fact that the youngsters are coming up and doing so well.
And we have to say that, we've seen an incredible generation of talent. I mean, we haven't seen the likes before, where we have people like Pragnanda, Erigaisi, Abdusattorov, Gukesh, all challenging the players at the top. And even now in the US Championships, we saw Christopher Yu, 15 years old, he defeated Levon Aronian. And
He drew with Levon Aronian?
oh, no, yeah, didn't he?
Yeah, I think you drew.
He drew.
Defeated Wesley So.
Defeated Wesley So, yes.
But yeah, I mean, maybe not since Magnus's generation, when there was a bunch of kind of top 10 players. But that's how it works, right? There's a generation. Eventually, a new generation will come and take over their place, and you often need competition, like we see at the moment. And meanwhile, okay, a set of pawn trades, and Magnus is blocked with his rook. Things are opening though.
Yeah, I guess here you take on e6 out of principle because you want to. It's not a mandatory move, but it's the first move I would look at here. I think black is committed to taking back with the pawn there. Queen takes looks fishy to me.
Yeah. So you want to take this pawn, Lawrence, to open the bishop up even further. Queen takes, you say, looks fishy.
Oh, hang on a second.
Whoa.
Look at
What
that
is
move that's
this
appeared on the
move?
board. He's just thrown his pawn forward, and black can capture that pawn twice.
But I don't like it at all.
I hate this move.
If I go e5 here, sorry, what's going on?
Yeah. Easy move, block it up.
Yeah,
What's this bishop doing now?
I mean,
Magnus plays it immediately. I mean, this is where sometimes the youngsters, again, they want to play the flashy moves, right? They want to be super aggressive, but sometimes you just need to take a time out. Just trade a set of pawns, maybe move your bishop away somewhere, I'm not sure where. Didn't mean that square, I meant this one. And eventually you try and line up your queen on this diagonal, for example, with the bishop. Looks really scary. I would be terrified here with black, with this king, but suddenly the game situation, just like you said, Lawrence, after white pushed forward, really flashy move. The whole idea is if pawn takes, the bishop takes, and the queen is attacked, discovered attack. But block it up. Block positions favour knights. Bishops hate block positions. Okay, the rook moves. How can Abdusattorov justify allowing the position to block up? Okay, rook takes rook. Magnus is just going to plant his knight on this outpost now. Cannot be challenged there. Yeah, just looks like good knight against bad bishop. Okay.
just wants to. I mean, this way of chess is just so out of my
So modern.
so out of my visual. It's quite. I mean, Viktor Korchnoi would imagine the tirade you would get on playing f5, allowing e5.
Yeah.
If he was still around, I just.
I tell you what he would approve of, though. He
Yeah.
would approve of that rook move, grabbing pawns.
Yes.
And, well...
But you're right. I mean, the old masters, they'll be like, this shows no strategic understanding. But youngsters, they don't care. They just calculate so well. even if it looks ugly, like we think it does, they make it work because they've calculated, they've worked. They've seen that they have specific concrete ideas. They don't play in general terms anymore. And now there's, talking of concrete ideas, there is probably a threat of rook takes the black knight, and then the white queen comes in. Very dangerous.
No, probably about it. That's a sacrifice you play.
Without thinking.
Without thinking, yes, because you know you have at least a perpetual, and to be honest, it's probably just winning. So, what is... OK, queen e7, and now...
OK, Magnus indirectly defends his knight.
What is the word to describe this game? Is it tense?
Just weird.
Both
Weird.
players have been creative, though.
Yeah.
Both
Yeah.
have been very creative. It is a high-level game as well. We've been slightly critical of one or two moves, but I mean, in general, it's been, I mean, both players going at each other, throwing everything in. And, OK, the black queen just came from this square, right? So if Abdusattorov goes back with the white queen 2 squares to the d2 square, that's the second time we've seen that position. He could at least ask that psychological question to Magnus. Do you want to repeat? Do you want the draw? Do you want to play for more? I think that's what I would do, even if I'm not intending to force a draw. He does go back.
And he doesn't have so much time on the clock, you know, just under 4 minutes. So I think it's a good thing to do. It's very practical, gain some time on the clock and force Magnus to take a decision. We've seen Magnus take tremendous risks against people he wants to beat. I mean, he almost lost against Aditya Mittal because he was so determined to win. And we've also seen in other games as well where he refuses to take the draw and as a result of that finds himself in trouble.
Ah.
Yeah. And this is not the type of position that you can risk too much because black's king is so open. You're right, Jovanka, he wants to risk, he wants to avoid repeating the position. What else can black do, though? Because that black b-pawn is attacked by the white rook. Can't defend it.
Might just be one of those dynamic equality kind of positions where actually neither side can truly do something.
He's trying, Magnus.
Yeah, he's going to try because that's his nature.
So a bit of a waiting move. It looks like he's just getting ready to maybe tuck the black king behind this rook. Abdusattorov retreats his bishop. Makes sense. That bishop was sometimes vulnerable to the black knight.
And it's also so super important to think about the consequences here. So I like what Abdusattorov has done, just maintaining the balance. I would not be advocating capturing pawns because you've got to assess the position, what it's going to be like when the rooks are off the board. And you'll see that black's queen is just going to be very powerful.
Yeah. Queen and knight versus queen and bishop. It could be that kind of that duo again. Queen and knight, we've seen are very strong. But, OK, Magnus still in the move. He's 1 minute down on the clock now. Abdusattorov looks very calm with his body language.
Ah.
Very focused. Doesn't look terrified at all, which I would be, got to say. The king moves.
So you can't take on b4 here, or what?
Well, now you can.
Now you can.
Now you
It's
can
check,
because
right?
there's a check.
Now let's show this. In the previous position, white retreated his bishop. If he had taken this pawn, then we would have seen the rooks get traded. And as Jovanka mentioned, the black queen comes out, wins a pawn, coming down into the white camp now. But after the bishop retreated, Magnus just put his king on the same file. Oh, whoops. My arrows. He puts the king on the same file as the rook. So now there's no time to take the white rook. Instead, he pushes, and this is the current position. Does white have more than a draw here? Does white even have a draw? I guess you can keep giving checks.
What about, yeah, like, let's say queen a5 check. Actually, king d7 might be a big blunder, right? Because the queen trade is probably very good for white, because you trade, you then play f6 check, and you play b4, and...
Yeah. Check.
Or maybe you don't even have to go b4. You can go king c1, king d2, and this looks...
Oh, whoops, sorry.
Yeah.
Looks bad.
The king, yeah, looks very...
Ah, he just took the pawn. Ah, now he's got queen a7 check.
OK, so in the game, I mean, this is how concrete the
Still,
youngsters
I
are.
mean-
No check, just take a pawn.
Yeah.
I guess black has to push. What
No.
else?
Oh, but if you push, then there's going to be some checks on the board.
OK, there is a check.
No, he's checked on the diagonal.
Yeah, here would have been blocked, sorry. So in this position, the king moves. Actually, checks can be blocked still. For example, the check here will be blocked by the black knight. check here. Maybe the king just moves again. What do you guys think? Is this pawn strong enough?
No.
No.
But I think it's enough of a nuisance to secure a draw.
It can still be blockaded by white's queen on its promotion square. I mean, Magnus, he's really pushing the boat out here, trying to win again, but risking things again. He's now down a pawn, the world champion. Abdusattorov, what is he going to do? I mean, I would probably just flick in a check just because I'm not sure what else. I guess you could go for your pawn push as well, Lawrence, the one you mentioned.
Yeah, but now... yeah, because queen e5, there's another check round the back.
Yeah, maybe here you could start coming around the back, yeah. OK, he does go for a check, but this is blocked. And now maybe it's time... again, you could flick in this pawn move first, but maybe it's time at some point to block with the white queen.
Probably flick in the pawn move, right?
It was, if you're going to be greedy about it, then you have to attack the queen.
The problem with the queen e2 is queen takes g5 actually just exists there, right?
Ah, OK, black's attacking that white g-pawn, yep.
So, oh, such a complicated position. So, yeah, indeed, he does attack the queen and preserve his pawn. And now he keeps the passed pawn on e3 under lock and key. It's a very good strategy, actually.
Right.
Always guard against the passed pawns. And it's such a weird position. You know, the black queen probably is going to do she's going to do a lot of damage on the right side. But then it's white's pawn that's going to be racing up the board. Here they come. Come on, push Alice. 2 squares.
Okay.
But actually, this move here...
Does it allow a draw as well? It allows white to give a bunch of checks. I don't think black can escape from all these checks now.
Oh.
The white queen can come back to the A file, check the black king from the front. I think we might be headed towards a draw. Jovanka, you're disappointed?
Yeah, because I thought that maybe white could start putting Magnus under some pressure. But OK, a draw is a good result, actually.
I mean, it's decent for both of these in the standings, the draw. But, I mean, both of them have wanted to win this game, right? They've both been taking massive risks, and Magnus looks away. He looks ready to get out of here with a draw. Does Abdusattorov have more? Can he play for the win? Can the white queen go grab some pawns, for example? Looks like it's too much, maybe. Asking too much of the white position. What would you guys do? I would just run out of here with a draw.
I think with a minute 25... Wow!
He goes for it. Ah, that's my boy. I like it.
Wow.
Because, I mean, if you want to, you know, reach the next level, you've got to put the world champion under pressure. I mean, he is the big boss. I mean, you know for sure Magnus will be playing on against him until the very end. And what's going to happen next? Is he just going to agree a draw, or are we going to see another pawn push?
We do have quite a few results now in round 11. A big one, Gukesh 3 points against Mamedyarov, and Vidit, he has lost against Eric Hansen. Vidit is outside top 8 now, and he really needs to fight to qualify for the knockout stage. And this one, do you still think it will be a draw, or are they fighting to win, both of them?
It's been a fighting game.
Yeah.
It probably will be a draw. But I'm really looking forward to see what happens next, because he's got Abdusattorov has got under 50 seconds left, and he has to take a critical decision. Is he going to go for the win?
Wow.
And he just advances his king. He's confident. I like it.
Is that a sign of going for a win, bringing your king into the game?
Yeah, because he could simply just give in a check and just check the king until the game finishes in a draw. And instead, he's like, no, let me play on.
Yeah, just to show this on the board, Jovanka. So, for example, here, it's not necessarily about the move he played, but it's about the options he could have forced the draw. As you mentioned, the queen could come back with a check, the king goes back, another check, the king moves, another check, for example, and the kind of dance goes on. There's no way for the black king to escape the white queen, but he's going for it. Look at this, advancing up the board. This reminds me a bit of Short versus Timon, 1981 Tilburg. With the white king in that game, the white king kind of danced up the board and actually helped to deliver checkmate. Here, the white king has started its journey. This is brave.
But
what to do if the black queen...
Yeah, exactly. You might have to bail out anyway because... Or are you going to play... Can you play bishop c4?
Keep
or
going.
Bishop b5?
Keep the game alive.
No, bishop c4 probably.
And then you want to kind of zigzag with your...
Yeah, I want to get to b5 with my king.
Okay, Magnus is
Wow.
offering a queen exchange. We weren't looking in that direction. We were looking the other way. But makes some sense. If the queens come off now, black's knight can blockade this.
Queen e7.
Ooh.
What is this?
It's frowning.
Both players playing for the win, but okay, Abdusattorov's last move. What's the threat here? What's the queen doing? Surely Magnus can start thinking about either gobbling up a pawn, or he can start pushing some of these guys. Black has a lot of pawns.
I mean, this kind of chess is just...
It's just crazy.
I don't know what this is. I just...
Okay, Magnus attacking this bishop now, attacking this pawn. Who would you prefer again? I mean, it's so hard to say.
Yeah.
I would probably take white still, but...
Okay. Why would that be?
Well, I mean, you know, black is playing without a knight on b7. I can take the f7 pawn in the right circumstances. Yeah, and bishop b5, queen takes d5, bishop c4 transposes to the note. This could have happened on the previous move.
Black still has some checks, though.
Okay, but
This
go
happens
king
in the game.
a3.
Yeah.
I mean, you can actually bail out here, right?
Maybe there's a check. Can you force a draw here?
Yeah.
He has done this.
But is Magnus going to be playing for more? After all, there's no threats from white. Oh, it's such a crazy game. 45 seconds left for Abdusattorov and Magnus, just under 2 minutes. Anything can happen.
Wow.
I love the fact that both sides are now playing full on for the win.
What a cool game.
Yeah, really, really cool game. And earlier it was Abdusattorov who turned down the draw. Now it's Magnus. It's up to him. He can take it if he wants, just by checking on c1 and back, repeating the position.
What do you think? Do you think he'll take it, or do you think he'll be like, no, you turned me down once?
The problem is that you've only got the queen in play, and I don't really see a way at all to activate. And
You have some passed pawns, right?
yeah, but
2 pawns up as black.
Yeah.
you do run the risk of
Just, I mean, there's no immediate threat.
queen takes
right?
e3 is a threat.
Yeah, okay. So you defend that pawn and then run your pawns.
Even there, like, there's a weird variation. For example,
Okay.
queen c1 check, king b3. Let's say you then go h5.
Check.
Right. I can play bishop d5 potentially. And even when you play queen d1 check, I've got king c4. And I know it's getting crazy, but this might still be okay for white because you're just dancing. I just protect the bishop and I'm covering some key squares. Queen c2. I can think about king b5 there, but I
Dance it
don't.
in. This is the king dance we were talking about.
You know, you can lose these positions as black for real.
Magnus is playing for the win, though. He doesn't repeat the position. If we go back, rather than giving the check on this square, where he would have forced the draw, he's now gone for a different bunch of checks. And now, will we see the king start marching up the board? We do. And Magnus gives another check now. White does have this very powerful passed pawn of his own. And, OK, Abdusattorov doesn't go forward. I thought maybe he would try to go forward, but he's retreated. Maybe he's just banking on the fact that Magnus is not willing to gamble any further. And Magnus could still give a check and most likely make a draw. What a game. Move 59. I mean, I don't think we've predicted even 5 of these moves in the entire game.
No.
Out of those 59. And, OK, what will Magnus do? Will he give another check? He could push this pawn, potentially. Lots of ideas in the position.
I would be tempted to push the pawn.
Pushes.
Magnus says yes.
That is close.
It is.
One more square, and you have to take this pawn off, right? Because if you'd moved the queen to stop this pawn, then a queen check would have helped the pawn promote next move. Let's go back to the players, because right now White's bishop gave itself up for that pawn, and I think we're about to see a draw because White's F pawn is just too strong.
Yeah, this will end in a draw, but again, it's just alien chess to me. I can't guess anything.
Yeah.
Actually, this move is quite tricky.
Magnus playing for the win still.
Yeah.
Wow.
So this stops the white pawn advancing because it's pinned to the white queen. Yeah, really ingenious stuff. And white's queen has to move, surely.
You have to go queen e6, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can also just move the queen 2 squares across and just pay no attention whatsoever to your king's safety.
White's king is safe on its own.
Exactly. It can
Queen
fend for
alone
itself.
cannot checkmate.
Just get that pawn promoted. That will secure the draw.
Okay.
And he steps forward with the queen. No, I didn't like this one. I didn't like this one because
Weird
you have to
square.
keep connection with the knight.
Oh, boy.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's suddenly a win for Magnus, but where is it?
Yeah, maybe it's not even immediate. It's just such a weird choice of square. Why are you blocking your own pawn? I mean, I don't think there's a threat. Magnus just pushes his pawn. If the white pawn advances now, the black knight can go over and just capture it. And what are we... OK, maybe there's still some tricks. Maybe there's still some checks. Did Magnus just miss an opportunity? If so, it was not obvious. OK, Magnus as well, making kind of gestures that he's not happy. Maybe it's still a draw.
So pushing that pawn might not have been the right move for Magnus.
Maybe it was just too slow. Maybe it was to do with giving some checks with the black queen instead. And yeah, it looks like now it should be back to equality, but not an immediate draw. The evaluation bar doesn't say 0.0.
And 10 seconds now for Magnus Carlsen.
Yeah, OK, gives a check. Very sensible. Run forward or back?
No, I think you go backwards here.
OK, I would. I always want to go
Oh,
forward.
you want to go play king a4, do you?
Yeah. OK, he does step back. This is safer, much safer. Yeah, it's just the problem is the black knight is dominated by white's b pawn. The black knight can never jump forward with any checks, any meaningful jumps. And Magnus's pawns are far too slow compared to white's pawn. It's just like you said earlier, Ivanka, it's the quality of the pawns, not the quantity.
Is it possible that Magnus can sacrifice a knight to try to keep the game? Anyway, we see him giving a few checks. This is good strategy. Build up time on the clock before you think about trying to prolong the game even more.
Yeah, black's knight could go and attack this white pawn at some point. OK, first he gives another check. Maybe on the next move. Is Magnus going to try and win now by attacking that white pawn with the black knight? Giving up the black knight for that f pawn? It's the only way to try and play for a win.
Yeah.
OK, he does give a check first. The king retreating. Yeah, it's hard to see what else he can try, Magnus, because white just needs 2 moves. White needs to move the queen out of the way, promote. Things turn.
Huh. Is this one of those traditional Magnus Carlsen grinding games that he often wins? Or is it because the queens are on?
Yeah, because the queens are on, it's just so concrete. It's kind of one move and you lose, or one slip by your opponent, you win. Also, remember that Abdusattorov beat Magnus in the World Rapid in a queen endgame. So Magnus may be seeing some ghosts there. It's another check. It's hard to know where Magnus wants to end up with his queen. He's given a whole bunch of checks right now. Yeah, it's the white king still doing that dance, still happily moving forward.
The next round, final round of today, round 12 in the preliminaries, will start in 6 minutes. These two will have 10 minutes after this game to rest and prepare for the final round of today. But the action continues in only 6 minutes. And actually, David Anton and Mittal, they are also still playing. But that game started late because Mittal played a very long game in round 10. So these two, they have played now for 75 moves and 55 minutes.
And Magnus keeping the game alive, you know?
Wow. He even pre-moved there. Black queen taking that pawn.
Well, now we have a race. Queen and 2 pawns against queen and 2 pawns.
Who's better?
I don't know. I mean, black's king is pretty unsafe, so you would guess that white always has the
B5.
option to give some nuisance checks.
And the kings are further away from the black pawns. Is that an advantage or a disadvantage? Because the white king is close to its 2 pawns.
So for black, it's potentially an advantage. If the queens disappear, if they get swapped off, then black is winning because the black king can stop the white pawns. White's king cannot stop the black pawns. The problem is, I don't think you can force a queen exchange. And actually having your king in front of pawns is sometimes bad because the pawns gain time with checks. And white's king can kind of hide behind its own pawns. Black's king cannot hide behind its own pawns. Actually, this endgame, when black doesn't have his 2 pawns, should still be a draw. That one's a really hard one to hold, but even if black lost both of his pawns, it should still be fine for him because he can give a bunch of checks. This one should be a draw with best play.
Yeah.
And I don't think Magnus can risk it any further. The black king's in serious trouble if white gets time to check. So, yeah, give another check, force that king back. Surely now they've tried long enough, both of them, to get that win.
Yep,
Yeah,
here it's
Magnus
coming.
is. You can tell by the facial expression he's done.
That's the second time. And if he steps the king up,
And it's over. Yeah. After 84 moves, it ends in a draw between Abdusattorov and Magnus Carlsen. The world champion shakes his head. He wanted to win this game desperately, but only a draw and 1 point. A very long game. And here is today's Lizaveta learning point.